Hello and welcome to the Arborwood South Preschool Family Engagement Activity Night. This is rocket science. So we have for you two different activities, a build a rocket activity, and then we also have a rock investigation that you can do at home. After all, this is rocket science. All right, so the purpose of these activities are to encourage you and your children to complete these science activities and to promote their growth in many different ways. You can promote their growth in language, literacy, their cognitive skills, and even math skills by completing these activities. Now, during these activities, you as the adult are going to act as the navigator. You're going to help your child through these activities, but the child is going to do the investigating. So by doing these activities, we hope that you continue to build a relationship together as a family. You as a parent are your children's first teacher. All right, so again, your child's going to be the investigator. They're gonna do the thinking and most of the work as much as they can do. You know your child the best, so what they can do, let them do. And then you're gonna be the navigator, help them through the projects, kind of guide them and ask them these posing questions we have to show to you throughout the slides. All right, so for the rocket science one, we are going to build a rocket with the materials provided. You should have gotten a little bag with all sorts of goodies in it. And once you build your rocket, you're going to explore what happens when the rocket is launched in different ways, such as pointing it up, pointing it down, pointing it straight across, and any different ways you can think of launching your rocket. And then we can also investigate what happens when you change the amount of force put behind the rocket. And as a challenge, you can change up the design of your rocket to see what changes you made and how it affects the trajectory of your rocket launch. All right, so right now, if you need to pause this video or at any point you need to pause the video, go ahead and do so to gather your materials. You're gonna need your foam tube, the 2 yellow trapezoids, a strip of tape that's folded in half, your pencil with the tape wrapped around it, and that large rubber band that was all provided to you in the little baggie. All right, and we're gonna get ready to build our rocket. Once you have all that ready, you can move on to this slide here. And I'm going to play a brief video of building a rocket. We are ready to build our rockets. So our first step, we're gonna take our 2 trapezoids. They look like triangles, but they have the tops cut off right here. Each one has a little slit, one in the bottom and one in the top. We're gonna take those 2 pieces and put them together at those slits. All right, and you're gonna make kind of like a little X shape or a T. They're gonna cross each other. Then we're gonna take our rocket. And one end of your rocket has slits cut in that. Your fins to the rocket are gonna help it go straight. You're gonna slide those right in there. So when we launch our rocket, these fins are gonna help it go straight, kind of like the feathers on the bottom of a bow and arrow. Now, how are we gonna get these fins to stay in there? We're gonna use our tape. So you should have a pencil with some tape on it. You're gonna use the smaller, thin piece of tape and get that started to unravel it, and you're gonna fasten it to the bottom of your rocket. I'll get it right up there close to your fins so that they stay secure in your rocket. Use your pencil as a guide to get it wrapped around there. All right, almost done with the fins. There we go. You might have a little bit of excess tape on the bottom of your rocket. That's okay, you can just fold it over, or if you have scissors, you can cut it. But now our fins are secure in place. It's time to start the most important part, the top of our rocket. You're gonna need your piece of tape that's already folded in half for you, your rubber band. Go ahead and place your rubber band on top of that piece of tape, and then we're gonna fasten it onto the top. And we're gonna use the larger piece of tape to fasten this on. Get a nice secure hold. You may want help with this part. This could be a 2-person job. One person can hold the tape to the rubber band while the other one fastens it on. You can use your pencil again as a guide to get the tape wrapped around your rocket. Make sure your rubber band stays loose and doesn't get trapped in the tape as you're wrapping it around. All right, now we are ready to launch our rockets. All right, so let's move on and get to launching our rocket. So what you need before you launch your rocket, you're going to need a clear open space away from anything that's breakable. Although these are soft foam rockets, they could still break something. So we want to make sure if we can go outside, definitely go outside and away from the roads. You're going to need something to measure with. Anything that you have, you can use your foot, a toy, maybe your hand, or just steps. Find something that you can measure with. All right, and then you're going to need your graph that you should have received in your packet and a writing tool. So when you get to your launch space, you're going to think about all these different questions as you're ready to launch. So what do you think would happen if I change the angle I launch my rocket? What if I point it up? What do you think will happen? What do you think will happen if I point it straight versus pointing it down? And then follow up with asking, why do you think that? And how do you know that? Encourage your child to describe what they see. Is there a difference between pointing it up versus pointing it straight across? How can you tell that difference? A couple of the important things is to repeat what you hear your child saying. So you think that if I point it up, it's going to go further versus if I point it this way? Let's investigate that again. And another important factor is give your child wait time. After asking a question, pause, count to 10 in your head, and let your child think and process that before providing them a response or supporting them in their response. So when launching your rocket, I want to show you one good launch here. I'm going to put this rubber band in front with my finger and I'm going to hold it. You also want to investigate different ways to stretch that rubber band. If I give it just a small stretch, a medium stretch versus a really long stretch, see how far you can get that rocket to go. All right, and then here's the graph that I was talking about earlier. You should have a page like this in your packet that you received. And there's different spots here, small stretch, medium stretch, and large stretch. So once you launch your rocket with a small stretch of that rubber band, see how far it went. What object did you use? Maybe you used your feet, or maybe you used a cup. How many feet, your steps, how many steps did it take to get to that rocket? Did it take 10 steps? Did it only take 5 steps? And then do another small stretch and measure that again. Then you're going to do just a little bit bigger of a stretch and measure it again. Did you pick a toy to measure with? How many toys did that take to get to your rubber band? Or how many steps did it take, or to your rocket? Or how many steps did it take? If you have a ruler, that would be a perfect way to measure accurately. So here's an example of the graph. In the small stretch, it only took me the first time only about 5 steps. I used my feet and I counted steps. Another small stretch, about 9 steps it took me to get to my rocket. And over here, I did the medium stretch and it took me a little bit more to get to my rocket from where I launched it at. And then I did another one. And it took me about 12 or 13 steps to get to that. But then when I did the really large stretch and I pulled it really far, I got almost 35 and 40, very close to 40 steps away from my rocket. Pretty cool. So once you're completed with that, I'm going to challenge you to change up your rocket. What materials do you have around your house that you can use to build your rocket differently? What happens if you use paper instead of the thick cardstock for the fins? What happens if you use a toilet paper tube instead of the foam base for your rocket? What if you used a different size rubber band or hair tie to launch your rocket? So try to change it up. What happens to the trajectory and the distance that your rocket launches? Take pictures of these different projects that you do and send it into your teacher. We want to see these rockets that you build. All right, now for our second activity. You should have gotten a little baggie with some rocks in it and a magnifying lens. So we're going to examine the different rock features. And then we're going to practice sorting the rocks into different groups according to those features. How many different ways can you sort those rocks? And then you're going to take a look at the world around you and see what rocks can be used for. Those rocks can be used for so many different things. All right, so your materials needed. If you have crayons, markers, coloring pencils, or any other kind of coloring drawing tool, awesome. You should have a pencil that you received already, your little bag of rocks and your magnifying lens. And if you want, you can go ahead and collect some other rocks from outside. If you have time to go outside, go ahead and pause this video and come back after you get some more rocks. The more rocks you have, the more fun it's going to be to investigate. That's an option. If you're not able to get out and go get some more rocks, that's okay. We gave you some that you can use. So during this investigation, you're going to describe the rock's features, such as the colors, the shape of the rock, the textures. How does it feel? Is it smooth or rough? What else do you notice about the colors or the design on the rock? After sorting your rocks, how many groups did you have? Are there an equal number of rocks in each group? And how do you know that? How can you tell how many rocks are in each group? And what are some other ways you could sort the rocks? All right, so we have some really cool papers, journal sheets actually, that you can use to gather your information. So on the first sheet here, it says to list everything you notice about your rocks. So I'm gonna look at this one here. Wow, it's got some really neat designs. It only has almost has some squares in it, some wavy features. Very interesting rock, but it's also very smooth and shiny. Where this one here, it's shiny, but it's very rough and bumpy. Interesting. Two shiny rocks. I have, oh, look at this rock here. This one's kind of sparkly on one side and rough on both sides. And this side's not so sparkly. So how can I sort these rocks? Look at the different colors I see. So you're going to draw some of the features that you notice on these rocks. Maybe some of your rocks have lines in them. Maybe some of them are just clear and solid in one color. So draw those rocks. After a grown-up, the grown-up is going to help you maybe list some of those features. Some are rough, some are smooth, some are bumpy, some are shiny, and some are very dull. Write out some of those features and draw some of the things that you see on this sheet here. And then on your second journal sheet is where you're going to stop again, take a look around the world, your neighborhood around you, and see what things are made of rocks. You'll be surprised how many things that rocks are used for. If you see a little broken piece of concrete, look very closely in that. You might see actually tiny fragments of rocks in that concrete. You might see some buildings that are made of rocks, or some fences that are made of rocks, or some lawn decorations made of rocks. Lots of different things are made with rock. All right, so when you're finished with your projects, again, take pictures of what you've done, what you've accomplished. Send it to either your teacher, or you could send it to me, Miss Stephanie. You can contact me or your teacher anytime with questions. We'll be happy to help you through any of these, or if you're missing materials, please let us know. And again, my contact information is here below. Thank you for joining us for the Arborwood Family Engagement Activity. This is Rocket Science.